4 ways that human evolution could proceed. It's been 157 years since Darwin published his groundbreaking book The Origin of Species, in which he proposed the theory of evolution back in 1859. Since then, our knowledge of the world and ourselves has increased exponentially, but what lays ahead for our own human evolution? In this video, we'll look at 4 predictions as to which way human evolution could proceed. Prediction 1. Human evolution has stopped. Many believe that because we have evolved, that it's natural to assume that the process will just continue like it has done ever since the beginnings of life over 3 billion years ago. However, there are now some that are saying that this may not be the case for humans, and that in fact our evolution may well have stopped. The proponents of natural selection say that the genetic innovations are only likely to become fixed in small, isolated populations. For example, Darwin's famous Galápagos finches each evolved from their mainland ancestor to fit the unique habitat on the isolated islands in the Pacific. However, the modern human race is now incredibly mobile, and crossbreeding makes it much less likely for potential significant mutations to become established in the gene pool. The main way that evolution works is by natural selection, or the survival of the fittest, as Darwin stated in his book, but this mechanism has been very much sidelined by humans because of the advances in medicine and healthcare. The fittest will no longer spearhead the evolutionary change, because, thanks to medical advances, the weakest can also live on and pass down their genes. When, in 1859, The Origin of Species was published, only around 50% of British children survived to the age of 21. Today that number is around 99%, though much of this is due to the great reduction in the number of diseases that plagued man until the arrival of modern sanitation over the following decades. In the developed countries, the fact that the vast majority now live until they're at least sexually mature means that the survival of the fittest does not really apply anymore. That part of the Darwinian drive has now gone, and our evolution has effectively stalled, and we will stay as we are from an evolutionary standpoint. Prediction number 2. Humans will continue to evolve. Whilst one group of scientists say that evolution is dead, other scientists see plenty of evidence that human evolution is far from over. Here are a couple of examples that are of recent adaptations which are the first steps in further evolution. The first example is of lactose tolerance in European peoples. Normally, children lose the ability to digest lactose in milk after they've been weaned. This leads to people having an intolerance to the lactose, which makes them feel sick if they drink milk. This is true of many people who are from Asia. However, over the past few thousand years, many people living in Europe have developed a gene which gives them the ability to drink milk and also digest the lactose at any age. It's thought that the ancient peoples of Europe used milk as an additional food source, and therefore the people who could drink milk would have a better chance of survival when food was in short supply, and this ability has now entered the greater gene pool. This genetic adaptation is seen as a direct effect of the cultural impact of farming changing the genetic makeup of one group of humans, even though they were not physically isolated on an island like Darwin's Galápagos finches. The second example is a thalassemic trait. Thalassemia, or sickle cell as it's also known, is a condition that many people have if they originate from the hotter climates of the world and where there is a high prevalence of mosquito-borne malaria. This is a genetic adaptation where the blood cells form differently and carry less hemoglobin, leading to varying degrees of anemia. But it also gives the carriers of this condition a higher resistance to malaria, which is often much more deadly to the general population than the condition itself. It's now believed that over the last 10,000 years or so, up to 50% of the population of some malarial areas now have gained this genetic blood adaptation. Prediction number 3. Transhumanism. The philosophy known as transhumanism sees humans taking charge of their evolution and breaking free of their biological limitations by use of advanced technology. In this, the future may well belong to unnatural selection. Darwinian evolution occurs very slowly, and in the case of humans, because of our longer lives, can take tens or hundreds of thousands of years to occur. But our technology has evolved at an exponential rate, and things which could directly change the human condition, like cloning, genetic enhancement, robotics, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology, to name but a few, continue to change at an ever-increasing rate. Transhumanism of the future raises a huge array of possibilities, from super soldiers to new breeds of athletes, to electronically augmented brains and sensors, to immortal beings who have had their brains scanned atom by atom to transfer their minds to computers. If this were to happen, a new type of evolution would emerge, controlled not by nature, but by man's wants and needs. In the future, it could lead to beings which look as remote to us now as we do to our mouse-like ancestors that survived the dinosaurs 65 million years ago. Prediction number 4. The evolution of off-world colonies. As we stated before, Darwin's Galápagos finches evolved because they were physically isolated from the mainland where they originally came from. However, for the humans, Earth is now a global village, and no part of its surface that cannot be travelled to within a few days if you really want to and have the resources. To really isolate a population, they would have to be off-world for a very long period of time for a new human species to arise. In the far distant future, if habitable planets well beyond our solar system were colonised by Earth migrants, it could provide the necessary isolation for a new human species to evolve. If we had spacefaring people who went on one-way voyages to distant stars, that might be enough to trigger the fixing of the evolution into a new species. But if you consider the small group of people that went on a one-way trip to the Americas via Asia some 14,000 years ago and became the Native Americans, and then compare them to the new Europeans that showed up 500 years ago, they are still the same species. So any isolations would need to be in the order of tens of thousands of years for nature to take its course.